Welcome to this episode of the Civitas Buzz. It's the 8th of August, 2025. And I'm coming to you live from the CTICC for the AI Empowered Conference. A whole bunch of entrepreneurs here sharing and learning on how to make sense of this AI wave. And it's definitely going to inform a big portion of today's podcast. So stay tuned for what we're seeing in the Civitas network, what we're seeing in South Africa. And excited to just dive straight in. No introductions probably needed anymore, but with me is Paul Smith, Ryan Osher, and Brett Stango, and I'm George Eady from Cape Town. And Paul, I'm going to start off with you today. Obviously, on one level, AI is something that has the risk of us getting a little bit fatigued about a conversation that seems to be carrying on having like in every corner. But I think it warrants it, and at each turn, there are these big drops from the big LLMs that change the game. Man, what are you seeing? What do you think is most important? What are the entrepreneurs that you're talking to making sense of this big wave that's crashing into entrepreneurship and I suppose the world?
Yeah, well, I think, George, the first one is to make sure that you're actually doing something in AI and you're trying to keep up. You're starting the journey. So I think there's some simple ways to do that. There are a couple of members who are a little bit deeper into the AI world than we are, but I think Reddit has been found to be a great place to go, as well as Notebook LLM, which is basically an app where you can upload episodes of AI. And if you can find a bunch of really good AI thought leaders to follow, people who are doing a lot of podcasts, you can just upload the interesting ones and then ask them questions. So it's a great learning tool. The other thing we've done is we've made 50% of our online content AI related. So we've had a lot of fun seeing what some of the members are doing in the AI world. We've had a couple of fantastic sessions. One of them from Hilla, from Selfmade. She runs a content agency and has a very interesting use case around great content and producing great thought leadership. And what tends to be happening with AI is you're getting a lot of thought follow shop or slop where it's regurgitating. And actually what you're really looking for is unique insights. And she had the clever thing to say, well, unique insights are happening in your business every day because you're having hundreds of conversations, hundreds of sales conversations are happening every year. You're having strategic meetings and you're getting unique insights, but those aren't being captured and being able to turn into content. So her view is that each business should be setting up some automations where all of the meetings and sales calls are recorded, and those are basically being collated somewhere, and then AI can be used to pull out the insights to create thought leadership, which I thought was a great use case for AI. Some of the other interesting use cases we have is now competitive research used to be timely and too costly for a small business to do. But now with a bunch of automations, you can set up scrapers that basically look at your competitors' websites every day, compare what's changed, and update you on that. So, and then get an email into your inbox every day with what's the competition up to, what they've changed, what's the market positioning, what's happened with their pricing, and automating that all. So that was Dennis Creel, one of the members who's been doing that for a couple of his customers. And then it's been quite interesting to see some full automation. So we've had a couple of business owners where they actually have had some retrenchments just because AI has basically made certain people redundant. The places where that's happening are two places we've seen as one in the engineering world, where you have maybe an engineering team of 50 people, but you don't need 50 people anymore. You can now get it being done by 30 people. So there's been some layoffs there, and the other places in the customer service world where ours got that. But I think that it's definitely coming. But where we've seen is that the tech companies have had far more adoption than the non-technical companies. And almost if you're a non-technical company, what I think the people who are getting some adoption is actually bringing out either an outside freelancer to help you adopt, or hiring a single person who's thinking about this every day to get the organization to adopt. That's sort of where some of the insights I've come across in the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's go around the park here a little bit because I know all of you guys are seeing and having different views on the matter. Brett, what are you seeing on the AI front on that theme?
Yeah, so very similar. I mean, I think apart from just hard engineering, I think the actual software dev businesses, especially those that rent people, basically place people and outsource people into organizations, are really wondering about, how much of an existential threat AI is. They're feeling it already. They're seeing a lot less demand for low-level devs to be on long outsource projects. So from what I'm hearing from people running those companies is that they putting their senior devs to good work and they're building lots of agents and they're doing lots of integration and stuff like that. But they're really sort of beginner and junior devs, they're finding much harder to deploy and find work for, because a lot of that work's just being done through AI. So it creates a real question about how you actually train people and how you get people into these software dev companies. Because if there's no low-level work, there's a lot to do before you actually, find yourself a good position in one of these kind of businesses now. Um, yeah, and then just, I mean, obviously the talk around AI is evolving. I think Sam Altman's appearance on the Theo Von podcast recently was a very interesting sort of anecdote where he compared AI to the Manhattan Project. And he actually said for the first time, I mean, Sam Altman, I've always found, has been very not only bullish, but like quite sort of dismissive of the critiques around it. And this was the first time when he was talking about his testing of ChatGPT 5 that he really sounded nervous and anxious about it. And he really sounded like, he saw something that tested him. And he said he actually felt useless trying to solve some problems when comparing himself to how ChatGPT was solving the same complex problems. Um, so for the first time, someone like Sam Altman is almost giving this perception that we're free falling down a slippery slope and we're not quite sure where it's going. And when he starts comparing it to a Manhattan Project, like he had his Oppenheimer moment, it was quite scary watching him actually have that moment.
For those who don't know what that moment is, in Oppenheimer, Manhattan, just give the context there.
Well, the Manhattan Project obviously was the project where Oppenheimer and others built the atom bomb. And, at some point they were doing the science and it was theoretical. And when they realized at some stage what this bomb was actually capable of doing and the destruction it could create, that's the kind of moment where everything turned for them. And that's kind of where what Sam Altman was alluding to. He's saying, like, I've actually realized now how potentially dangerous this is. And for someone in his position to take that stance when he's been so bullish up until now, for me, like, I mean, obviously we've always spoken about this, but it's very theoretical. Someone so close to it, it gave me a bit of a fright that he seemed to have this sudden turnaround.
Yeah, I suppose that's the backdrop, right, to all of these things. Like, they talk about your ability to be agile and use your
Mm.
prefrontal cortex in any activity requires that you not be in survival mode, and a lot of these, like, almost like big, intimidating existential questions seem to be affecting certain people's ability to even just make simple insights. I mean, you'd think a simple insight is I had a conversation with a customer, I record the transcript, tell the LLM to write a post for me based on that conversation. That would be like an easy insight, but it's almost like sometimes just getting some of these easy insights are clouded out by some of these intimidating themes. But I think it's really very relevant, and added to that, the White House is sort of now public about AI being, a race that'll have huge
An arms
consequences.
race.
Yeah, so it's like from the absolute macro to the super micro that this is needing to be made sense of. Ryan, where are you coming out on this? What are you seeing? Yeah, let us have it.
Yeah, so kick off maybe by saying I'm not an AI skeptic, and I was very excited to see GPT-5 land in my on my page this morning when I opened up ChatGPT. But it's certainly been evident that there's like a whole host of new problems that have come up since this adoption of AI, and interestingly, very different problems from the technical and non-technical founders. The technical guys are saying it's amazing they can do like so much more than they can, but every week their work's outdated and they have to almost like re-look, and keeping up with the trends is just taking a considerable amount of time. Similarly, on the non-technical guys, I mean, listen, they able to build landing pages using a lot of these, AI like app building platforms now in a matter of hours, which, to their to exactly what spec they're looking for, where previously they couldn't, and they're able to use video editing tools that they couldn't beforehand. But there's certainly been this risk of, looking back and sinking like significant amount of hours for them with actually like not much to show for it. So I certainly think there's like an interesting path to tread here where, and it's a big function of what we're trying to do in the network, is to say, look, there are so many tools coming out weekly and so many available. And what seems to be happening is a lot of our members are almost looking to other members for the answers of what they should be choosing, as opposed to going, down a path that could be quite concerning for them if they double down on a tool that isn't fit for purpose, or something better comes out next week. So it just seems like whilst there's so much opportunity on the table, there's also a lot of like cautious treading that's required. But what I'm quite interesting to see is like, what the real ROI has been for a lot of these companies spending the time that they are using AI. I think, placing staff and saving, on that helps. But a lot of these guys are saying even hosting a lot of their big projects on LLMs is costly. They're embedding a lot of these into core processes. If the LLM is unavailable, like they are in a bit of trouble. So it's a very interesting landscape. We're obviously staying very close to it. It's certainly empowered a lot of people to take on work and produce outcomes that they couldn't have before. And I can speak from that from self-experience as well. It's been amazing to be able to utilize the tools. And another interesting observation is how many of the ordinary tools that businesses are currently using, how they embedding AI into their systems. So people are almost leveraging off the upside of AI without having to actually put this time in themselves, so they're getting more bang for their buck or more output from what they're currently using, which is pretty cool. But I guess the one big question I'm wondering is, with this movement into AI, what is the desire and what value will be placed on human connection and human intelligence? And when you're dealing with a lot of automated or AI generated mails, so on and so forth, which is a common problem. Like when you actually get to sit with someone that's got deep expertise or domain knowledge in their space, is that going to be like more value these days and in future more than it ever was beforehand? So I'm quite interested to keep a close eye on how the integration of AI into our lives is going to impact the level of human connection that people are going to seek out.
A very good friend of mine is a developer, and we got to spend a few hours together this last while, actually building a social birding app called Bindo. And what he's seeing is that he drew the analogy of of building a workbench, a shelf, a wooden shelf. Like imagine you could prompt into existence a shelf, but the problem is right now is the shelf you get is a shelf that almost doesn't fall down, but actually it does a little bit fall down. And as a developer, once you've got this almost working product, you have to have the insights as to how to take it from that 90% finished product to the 100% finished product, which is where all the magic happens or doesn't happen in the creation of new. Look, he says he can't imagine not using AI anymore in his coding and that kind of thing. So he's not exactly critiquing it, but he is saying, wow, there still remains this very important element to all of this, which is that last 10%. And I think as I talk to entrepreneurs, I think that's the reason they like to talk to one another. It says, okay, you tried that thing. There was the hype about it, there was the talk about it, there was the thing, but did it work? The amount of hours that we can save from sharing those very practical, gritty insights in the exercise of scaling, I think is a huge one. Yeah, another thing is now the ability to spin up landing pages, new concepts, almost customer-ready products, is no longer as friction-filled as it once was. So with the ability to produce so many more of them, the question becomes, as the entrepreneur plagued by what should I focus on, is now, which is most important? I could do 10 things, I could do them quickly, but why should I do any one of them, and which one's most important for me? Because it's still true that we need to be building things that are going to last more than a month or a year. Otherwise, what's the point? So that discernment element for me is, and also that's something I get really passionate about as a coach, because discernment is more or less like under threat from so many forces at the moment. Social media, fear, uncertainty, and doubt messages that people like to throw out there. Making moments of just like breathing, meditating, and letting yourself get super clear on what you're not going to do. It really like rises to the top. So yeah, guys, what else are we seeing on this AI front? Anyone can chime in here, but I think this is the topic of the hour. Who wants to add to this?
Yeah, so I spent a little bit of time listening to the episode that came out yesterday with John Collison, one of the Stripe founders, and the CEO of Anthropic, which is behind Claude. And what he was saying is that there's a bit of a debate going on that there are certain parts of AI where people are going, no, it's never going to do the full 100%. And his view is it'll get there. Like everyone was skeptical over the last few years, it'll never get to X, it'll never get to Y. And each time it's like surpassed that milestone. So I do think what is going to happen in time is that, according to him, that we're going to basically have AI, which is eventually going to be able to do the 100%, which is quite a trippy thought. So I think just to add on there. And then the other super interesting thing is he was saying that basically what's happening is the business model for these big AI companies is totally different to any business model that's happened before. So what's been going on is they say we're going to need $100 million to train the model. And then what ends up happening is they spend the $100 million, and in the first year Anthropic did $100 million in revenue. They then said we're going to spend $1 billion to train to the next model, and we're going to do $1 billion in revenue next year. They did that, and now halfway through the year they're at $5 billion in revenue, and they're hoping to get 10. And what his view is that you're going to have the shakeout of all of the companies, and you're going to have a few big models because they're just going to be so expensive to train the weights that it'll be basically a few major winners in the game, and there's going to come to a time where they're going to spend 10 billion and then maybe even 100 billion on training a model, and that model eventually is not going to get the return, or maybe it will, but they've got these crazy logarithmic laws that they've never seen in businesses. $100 million, $1 billion, $10 million, 3 years is like just crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. Brett, do you want to add anything to this hairy topic?
Yeah, I mean, not so much, really around additional insights on AI, but I think the thing that you brought up around discernment has been coming up in forums quite a lot now. People talking about their roadmaps, and product roadmaps are coming under even more pressure from sort of sales-driven behavior, or feature whoring, as we call it, because the expectation is that things can just be built so much faster. So there's less strategic thought going into roadmaps, and there's more of this customers just coming to companies and saying, we want A, B, C, D, and thinking they can get it all because we're all telling everyone's being told that everything's so easy to build now. You can just pop it into an AI and get it out the next day. Obviously, all these things still take quality assurance, still have security concerns, still have governance issues, and all the other sort of real issues that fit behind software once it's been developed. So I think the expectations have gone through the roof. It's putting a lot of pressure on product and SaaS type companies to just push
Yeah.
stuff through the funnel even faster.
One other thing
Yeah,
I've heard is that there's now a world of in raising capital, which is that you either have an AI company or you don't. And if you don't have an AI company, good luck raising money. And what happens in between is the faux AI companies, the guys that put it in their name or put it in the thing, but they're actually not doing anything meaningful in that space. And investors are needing to sort of sift between, is it real AI or is it just borrowed, or is it core or not? But yeah, that for me, like I spoke to a founder, high growth, early stage, and needing to think about their pitch deck because they're not an AI business, and no one cares. So that's super interesting. Ryan, why don't you add to this topic or take us into the world of non-AI? You can lead us onto anything else that might be relevant.
cool. Yeah, I think just final comment there. I mean, I think it points to your point now and Brett's prior point is there's so many articles I've come across recently that are arguing how, the traditional lean startup or customer development process is dead. And because it's just so quick to launch product, you can almost skip out a whole bunch of steps that you would have done previously. And perhaps that's creating the expectation around, feature-rich products, given the plethora of businesses that are just being launched, each week. But I also spoke to someone recently that does a lot of work in the call center space, and they had a strong argument to say, yes, there are these risks about the evil of AI, but there's so much good coming out of it. And they mentioned an example how there was a specific call center locally that's empowering deaf people now to become call center agents through the use of AI. So it's just like there is some real incredible things coming out of it, and hopefully, yeah, the good of humanity, outweighs the opposite. But maybe a segue into a topic I've been thinking about is, we often speak of simplification in a business, and simplification of your life also seems to be a common topic at the moment. And we're certainly like living in a world that's getting far more complex. And I guess a question to put forward to everyone is, like, how do you sometimes also just ignore the noise? And when do you know when you should just be sticking to your knitting and focusing on what you're good at? And is there a risk to that being left behind? But there's certainly a lot more opportunity around us, which can create complexity. But, are humans simple beings? And do we thrive with simplicity? And where's the balance?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome. I guess let's do a final round here on almost the human side, guys. Maybe the non-AI side to take Ryan's lead. Yeah, so with those provocative questions, yeah, Paul, where do you come out on this?
Sorry, George, you're just going to have to repeat.
Yeah, so with those provocative questions, Paul, where do you come out on this, on the almost the more human side, and kind of like being kind of okay with it all and being okay with yourself through all of this?
Well, I mean, I do think that good old Buffett and the seven powers is probably ever more relevant with all of this AI going on. Um, Real moats are still there, and I think the businesses which build real moats are still going to be fine. So I think that on the more business side, I think moats are going to be more important than ever, and actually having real network effects. On the human side, I'm just super excited. I think that what's going to happen is that every person is going to be able to just do a whole lot more. And I think we're going to see just an explosion in creativity and an explosion in economic growth and new products and services. And I think there will obviously be many downsides, like any new technology. But I also think there's going to be a tremendous amount of upside for people to be more creative. I do think that as AI becomes smarter and smarter, just kind of like in the chess world, when Kasparov lost, like no one watches there's no massive interest in the sort of two AIs competing in chess. But when we look at the world championships, the human games are basically the ones that get more of the attention, which I think it will be that there is something about being human and human connection. So that would be my thoughts.
I'm going to jump in here because I might get cut off in a moment, and if I do, you guys can wrap. But yeah, for me, I think we've all grown up in a Western system where we get told, and our whole education system is built around doing things on your own, figuring it out on your own, and like cheating is cheating as opposed to sharing. And I think the depths of that wiring is so profound. And I think we can all take the leap out of like a more African and ecosystem and like community-based approach to just say something flippin' happens when we just talking to another very ordinary person similar to us on a mission similar to us, making sense of these themes together, that makes everything just feel better, which, to my point earlier, allows us to calm down, activate our prefrontal cortex, make some good decisions, and get through the day. And if we just stack enough of those good days on top of each other, sticking to principles of value, caring for the customer, a lot of things kind of sort of get taken care of. That's kind of, for me, my sort of final take. Yeah, Brett, what do you want to add to this? And then Ryan can have the final word.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different points that you've brought up. I mean, obviously there's the sort of practical things in the business now. I just, on a more philosophical side of it, in terms of the bigger picture, I feel like everyone's just accepted that AI is now a fait accompli. There is no stopping it. Some people will be more skeptical, some people will be more excited about it, but either way, it's going to happen. And I think the only thing to consider about that is that it's not a decision that we've strategically and consciously made. We've now fallen into that. And human beings and our economic system is very geared towards short-term thinking. I mean, we're all talking about the immediate benefits we can get of AI. And even if we were to discover that there's some long-term devastating outcome, it's not unlike climate change. We're probably just going to keep careering straight towards it. So I'm not an AI skeptic, but I am AI cautious. I am a little nervous about the fact that this is not even something we really understand yet, but we're just careering towards it. Now, probably most of the time we'll treat it like any other technology and we'll figure it out as we go along and we'll integrate it. But it seems to be a different level of change. It really does seem to be a different level of change. Even if we look at nuclear, I mean, that's still an existential threat to the world. This is people are saying 10, 100,000 times bigger threat than nuclear. So, I mean, no one's going to stop, and we're all going to make use of this now. I mean, right now, AI is a ticket to the game. I mean, you don't have a business if you're not using AI. If you're anywhere in the tech space, there's no running away from it. But where it goes, I think, is really an unknown at the moment.
I love that thing about long-termism. I feel like the world beyond 2030 just doesn't exist in most people's minds anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that sort of slightly devastating comment from Brett there, Ryan, please bring us in for a safe landing.
Yeah, safe landing. I mean, listen, I think of my daughter who's 1.5 years old now. Like, I can't even think of her schooling in 10 years. Like, I just believe it's going to be fundamentally different. I don't think worse. I just think it's going to be fundamentally...
Don't even have to worry about it, Brett.
Don't have to worry about it, yeah. Hopefully it's free.
Things are actually good at school. I mean,
exactly.
Recently it seems like there are much better options here.
Yeah, I think my just hope is that, yes, we'll use it and it will empower us to spend more time in the places we want to spend more time and do the things that we previously couldn't, but it doesn't ultimately change the way people engage with one another. I don't reply to your message because it's easy for me to dictate and send. I reply because I actually genuinely want to reply. So I really just hope that, it's not going away. It's here to stay. That it just doesn't change the course of
But I mean,
relationships.
you've got Zucker. I mean, you've got Meta now making like $1.2 billion offers for engineers. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've seen some of this stuff. I
yeah,
mean, okay, I mean, soccer players been getting this for a while, but you've got guys getting like $1 billion offers. And how do you distribute? I mean, how are those benefits distributed more equally? I mean, because I think this is what's coming. Like this polarization is going to lead to, a real moment of trying to of conflict where we're going to have to figure out. Uh, okay, we're going to stop, but what do we go to Zizek and his fully automated luxury communism? Like, I'm not sure what the end of this is.
yeah. Ends
Yeah,
unclear.
guys.
The
Well,
journey will be a good one.
I've been loving some Diary the CEO emphasis on this of late. So if
Hmm.
you are feeling like today's podcast didn't answer all your questions, I recommend going to check that out. But guys, thanks so much for your time today. Until next time, yeah, peace, keep up the good work, and always lekker to
Enjoy the
hang with you all.
conference.
Shot,
Thanks,
guys.
George. Thanks,
Ciao.
everyone.
Cheers. Bye.